Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jerry Jones, CEO of Jerry Jones Direct, and a membership-based dental practice growth company here in Salem, Oregon. Also CEO of Wellness Springs Dental. And with me today on this very special preview webinar, I have with me Mr. Ty Bennett. As for those of you that are joining us online here can see, I want to thank you for joining us today. And we're going to basically be sharing a little bit about what Ty is going to be speaking about come March. March 3rd through the 5th of 2017 is the American Academy of Dental Practice National Meeting. It's their annual meeting. And you can find out more about this national meeting at AADPA.org. You can click on Meetings and Education. So today's a little different. We're going to start with the end in mind with this first of a number of preview webinars. And with me today, as I mentioned, is our closing keynote speaker for the AADPA National Meeting, Mr. Ty Bennett. Ty and his brother Scott built a phenomenal sales organization from scratch to 20 million in annual revenue, which is just tremendous. I mean, in any business model, I don't care what it is, 20 million is a big chunk of money. Since that time, Ty has developed over 500 sales managers with sales and leadership in 37 countries. He draws on his in-the-trenches experience to share real, tangible techniques about the principles of leadership and living a fulfilling life as an entrepreneur. He was recently featured as one of the top 40 under 40, and Scott's clients include a number of companies you'll immediately recognize as household names, a few of which we'll talk about a little bit later. Ty, thank you for breaking from your busy schedule and joining me today, and the rest of the folks here that are AADPA members and others that may be joining us on this webinar. Your topic for the closing keynote is the 2 most important days in your life, and I've got some questions about some of that, but I mean, obviously everybody wants to know what the 2 days are, but I don't think we should share that because it might be spoiling part of the
it's fun that I get to kind of wrap up the conference or be part of the finale of the conference. And I think about, obviously this is a long ways out. It's next March. It's going to be a beautiful setting. It's in Florida. It'll be a great event and lots of information leading up to that. But, when I think about the closing keynote, and as I've talked to, some of the people on your committee and what you're looking for, I want to share some insights into leadership and some key takeaways that people can use, and as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as service providers. But I also hopefully can leave each person feeling inspired to take everything that they've gotten over the last couple of days and be able to go and put it into their practice, and to really kind of come back in touch with the purpose on why they do what they do, what drives them to serve their patient, what drives them to show up every single day, what drives them to really make a difference in people's lives. And hopefully, I think we can have a good time doing that and leave on a high note. That's the idea.
You mentioned one thing there in particular that I know most people that attend an event or a seminar struggle with. And they may get great information, but without implementation, that information is really worthless. I mean, you're almost better off just staying home and playing games or whatever. But that implementation is real key. Can you maybe, because that's so important to really the entire event, is taking the information that they gather and doing something with it. Do you have maybe 1 or 2 key tips that you could give us now about implementation, about being more effective?
I agree. I think that's the key ultimately, right? You mentioned the background my brother and I had as entrepreneurs, and I think one of the things that we were very good at or very effective in is that we didn't spend a lot of time just talking about ideas or thinking, but we were implementers. We would take key ideas and we would run with it and see what it is. So a couple of tips. One is you go to a conference like this and you're going to get so many tips that oftentimes the overwhelm causes paralysis, right? So you're going to get 500 different ideas. Well, implementing 500 different ideas isn't feasible. So narrowing it 1 or 2 that you and your team need and that you can prioritize as here's what we're going to go do, so that day 1 when you get back in the office, you're going to start to put that in place. I think that's one of those things. The second thing is, I think a lot of times with a conference like this, we come off of it and we give too much lag time in getting back into the swing of things. And so we have to be able to put something in place, a strategy to here's how we're going to implement this and here's when. And sooner is better than later, because anything that's out of sight becomes out of mind very quickly, right? So my suggestion would be, if you prioritize those 1 or 2 things throughout the conference, then the flight home is a strategy session. It is, here's exactly how we're going to implement this one idea. this is what we need to do. So which means staff meeting on Tuesday morning, I'm going to lay this out. This is what it looks like. This is how we're going to do it, and put something in place so that you come home ready to run with that idea, as opposed to coming home with, oh yeah, I need to get to that, because it just never happens.
It just gets buried. It gets lost.
It does. We're all busy.
Takes back over.
And you're already trying to catch up from what you missed, the last couple of days. And so it's very easily going to get lost.
Right. You mentioned staff, and I think that's a real important point that we should bring up, because every doctor, with the exception of one dentist that I've worked with in the last 20 years, has employees. Only one dentist I worked with has no employees, which is it's a phenomenal model. We don't have enough time to talk about it, but she does very well nonetheless. Everyone has employees that's going to be at this event. Most will probably not bring their employees. And from my perspective, that's probably a big mistake. And I've got my own reasons for it. What would you counsel a doctor in this case to do with employees? Scott, Ty, I must have lost you. Oh boy. Well, that's always embarrassing. Hopefully Ty will be able to dial back in here and rejoin us. But while we're waiting here, have not had this happen, but we literally have lost Ty. We're gonna try and get him reactivated here. So hang tight, everybody. I apologize. It looks like we dropped him. That's okay. Ty will come back in here in a moment. I apologize to our viewers there. We've been using this system flawlessly for a number of weeks now, and we haven't had a single problem with it, but it figures. The question I was going to ask Ty, or I was asking Ty, and I'll talk a little bit about it as Ty jumps back on, really has to do with, as Ty mentioned, you get some great ideas. He outlined a great way to make those ideas effective. In other words, get them in place. On the way home, spending some time hopping on, going through your list of great ideas and creating a strategy to implement them one at a time or a couple at a time over a period of maybe a couple of weeks, and then spreading those out literally over the next couple of months. So each week you have a new strategy or technique that you've picked up at this conference to implement. It makes it a lot easier to do. And where I was going with Ty on this idea that you really should be encouraged to bring your team is that when you get back and you're all excited and all pumped up about what you've picked up, what you've learned, it really kind of, the air sort of goes out of you and you get defeated very quickly unless you have buy-in from your team. So unless your team is part of that process of creating these, taking these ideas, these strategies and techniques and beginning to implement them in your practice, without buy-in from your team, without their support, that's what buy-in means. They're supporting you in these ideas. It makes it very, very difficult, if not impossible, for you to, sort of renew your practice and take these ideas and find out just how effective they can be for you. When you have buy-in, it's a completely different game. Suddenly, when you have buy-in, you have your team pushing you more and more to get these ideas, strategies, techniques that you've picked up at a conference adapted and learned. And we still don't have Ty back yet, but I don't want that point to be sort of glossed over, because it is very, very critical. Folks, I'm going to take just a moment here, a break, and see if I can reach out to Ty. So just bear with me here for a moment and see what we can do. And again, I apologize for this break here in the communication, and see what we can make happen here. All right, folks. I have gone ahead and made another attempt to get Ty back on the line with us. And again, I apologize. He's probably as frustrated, if not more so, than myself. So what I want to do is, while we're waiting here to see if we can recapture Ty in a moment or two, I want to just review a couple of other questions I had for Ty, and that way you guys are kind of prepared and I'm prepared when he comes back on the line. I wanted specifically to note, I mean, Ty's worked with some amazing companies, dozens of them. Companies like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Nestle, National Restaurant Association, Subway, one of my favorite nonprofits, Wounded Warriors, and more. I mean, just dozens of companies. I mean, if you go to his website, tybennett.com, you can literally see what Ty does, but more importantly, some of the companies that he works with and the results that he's been able to help them accomplish. And one of my questions was, what are you looking forward to most about working with dentists and their teams that he may find interesting, perhaps unique, from his other keynotes? So every one of these keynote addresses that Ty creates is specific to his audience. And I think that's really a unique talent. Many keynotes really don't pay any attention to the audience that they're speaking to. It's the same message over and over again, and they don't really consider who's in attendance. And it does look like we've got Ty rejoining us here. So there you are. I can hear you, Ty. Can you hear me? All right. We do have Ty back on the line here. I can see him. You probably can as well if you're joining me online. Are you with us?
I believe so. I apologize. I don't know where I went.
That's okay. You're here now, and I'm glad you're back. I was just, I sort of kind of took the ball and ran with it on that last question about suggestions on a doctor bringing his team to this event. And I talked a little bit about getting buy-in, because obviously, you know, you get all these great ideas, but as a leader of your organization, if you don't have support, you don't have buy-in, it makes it challenging. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit, because I didn't do it much justice. Let's put it that way.
Well, I've written 4 books. My most recent book is called Partnership is the New Leadership. And one of the chapters is all about buy-in. I think it's so essential, because as leaders, we want our people to be committed. We want them to be engaged and to run with the ideas. But one of the things I think we miss quite often as leaders, especially in today's world, is the concept that people support what they help create. So often as leaders, if we take a top-down approach, is we think we're in charge, so we're just going to say, okay, go do this. And when they aren't as gung-ho about it in the implementation, we're going, why is that? And the truth is, in today's world especially, and I could go into all the psychological reasons why, part of which has to do with social media and the fact that we believe we have a voice and we have a platform to have a voice. It's different than it once was, but people need to be involved at the point of creation. And so you bring your people, your staff, to a meeting like this, and all of a sudden they're involved in figuring out and prioritizing what those new initiatives are. And they see the idea and they help put together the game plan on the flight home. And because they're involved in the creation, the implementation comes so much faster.
Yeah, and it's a much more organic or natural process that if you were to attempt it without that buy-in, it's pushing water uphill, and it can get very frustrating very quickly.
I agree.
Yeah. Ty, one of I kind of prefaced this with our viewers here a moment ago. What are you really looking forward to most about working with dentists and their teams that you maybe find interesting and different than presenting a keynote to, let's say, the National Restaurant Association or a major corporation like Coca-Cola or Subway?
One of the things I love, I mean, at the heart of it, dentists, they're entrepreneurs. They're small business owners. That's how I think. I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I love working with leaders who, you're in a unique model because you're hands-on with the customer or the patient, right? You are in a small enough office, you're nimble enough, you have a small enough staff that your leadership makes sweeping changes. And so I see dentists as influencers, both with their team, with their organization, as well as with their patients, because they have such a a hands-on approach. You know, I'm not working with the CEO of a company who typically never interacts with the end, you know, consumer. And so I just love the fact that when you're working with an influencer, you have your hand in so many different things, and the leadership and the influence strategies that I share with audiences become so much more impactful. And I love the fact that the dentists that I've worked with, I've had a chance to speak for several different dental groups, and to work with the Seattle Study Club and some different groups like that. And what I find is dentists are pretty purpose driven. I think as a whole, they're there to serve the patient. They want to make people's lives better, and they want to make an impact. And I just love the overall idea of that.
What would you characterize probably as the top skill set a dentist should have and continually focus on developing outside of clinical dentistry in order for them to be successful? And I think this is a question that a lot of dentists struggle with. And I've been in this field for 20 years. Sometimes I don't even see the challenges anymore because I'm so, I'm used to it. It's the forest and the trees deal. But I know that so many still struggle with that division of labor and thought. So, they have to be doing the dentistry in most models that we see. Yet they also have to be dealing with their employees, their staff, payroll, you name it, all the responsibilities that a small business owner has. Based on all those things they must pay attention to, all the hats they must wear, what things should they be most focused on developing continuously for success?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. I think there's several things, obviously. I think there's a lot that goes into it for sure, right? So I don't know if it's just one thing. And this may sound interesting because you worded the question as a skill, but I think the skill is influence. And I truly believe it is a skill, because I think that when I think about the dentists that I go to, because here's the thing, I would assume that any dentist I go to has the dental skill to do a good job. That's just an assumption, I think, by every patient, every consumer out there, is that in business today, you have the capability to be good. That's kind of the entry fee. It's not like a big distinguishing factor. I don't go, this dentist is so much better than any other dentist in terms of how they clean I take care of my teeth. I think it's the ability to develop relationships. I think it's the ability to engage your staff so that they are committed and provide incredible customer service. I think it's your ability to lead and to influence, which again, I believe is a skill. I think it's something that you can learn and something you can develop.
As you're coming up through the ranks, making millions of dollars in your first business, your first entrepreneurial business experience, what surprised you the most about being successful in business? What really sort of took you aback? Like, I had no idea that I would ever do that or use that skill or learn that.
Well, I still think sometimes I feel like I pinch myself sometimes, just the experiences that I have, different groups of, as an example, I spoke on Monday at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. There's a family who's given an endowment for a leadership lecture series, and they're sharing with me who they've brought in before. And for me to stand and address all these doctors and nurses and incredible staff and administrators, 3,000 employees of the Mayo Clinic, as part of this leadership lecture series that a family has chosen to use their fortune to support, to me, that's humbling. I'm always amazed at some of the experiences that you end up having and just the connections you make and different things. So from just a personal standpoint, I am, I guess, always constantly surprised and humbled by certain experiences. In terms of things that I didn't realize or things that I guess I would never get, what was surprising to me is that how there's nothing that drastically changes in any huge way. And the difference between good and great is not as dramatic as I think most people think it is. I think there's little distinguishing things. I think most of the leaders that I'm around that most people would classify as great, they work a little bit harder than most people. They work on themselves a little bit more than most people. They're still not at any perfect state for sure, but they're a little bit more refined. They've developed the skill a little bit better. They build a little bit better relationships with most people. So I thought, I don't know. I guess I assumed some people you get around, you just go, oh my gosh, they're so different and so unique, and we're all people, right? But I think to me, I've come to appreciate the subtle nuances that truly create success.
It's sort of like watching the Olympics, which wrapped up not long ago. I'm always amazed at the difference between gold, silver, and bronze in time. I mean, swimming's the most stark of all of those, right? I mean, you're looking at 100th of a second between a world champion and somebody nobody ever hears from again or about. I mean, it's remarkable, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's really the difference between good and great is a very small, it's a small lever, but the results can just be tremendous. I mean, as far as your outcomes. So what kinds of hurdles can our viewers expect that you'll give them strategies or techniques or ways to overcome that they may be experiencing in business when you speak in March of next year at the AADPA meeting?
Yeah, so I've got about an hour to wrap up the meeting and try and share a message that makes an impact. I think when you think about some of the hurdles that you experience from a leadership standpoint, how do you build influence with your people? How do you have more committed and engaged staff that ultimately is going to create the experience for your patients that you want? I'm going to share some insights into leadership and influence and how you do that. But I also want to get to a personal level with each of these people as entrepreneurs to really take a serious look at what drives you. What is your purpose? Because I think we all start out and there's a point where we're very clear on that. And at least if you're like me, the day-to-day of things can help, you can lose that. You can lose it pretty easily, right? And so I will give away just this saying, because you can probably Google it and find it pretty much anywhere. I wrote a book called The 2 Most Important Days of Your Life. It's based on a Mark Twain quote. He said, the 2 most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you discover why. And I think sometimes getting back in touch with that purpose, that second day, where your talents and your passions and your values come together and you can truly feel inspired to do what you do. One of the best things about a conference like this is to reunite with that feeling, so that, because that comes across to people. It comes across in your daily interactions. It comes across with your staff, with your patients. And so I think on from a leadership's, customer service, business owner standpoint, we're going to talk about some specific strategies on how to be more effective that way, more influential. But from a personal standpoint, I want to share some ideas that maybe get you back in touch with who you are and why you do what you do.
Awesome. I don't know if you're a big television watcher. I don't happen to be. I catch maybe 1 or 2 programs a week that have an interest to me. One of those is for entertainment purposes only, which is America's Got Talent. I really enjoy seeing some of the wild acts. And one of them stood out to me, although the young lady that plays the fiddle and sings is, I mean, what a gift. I mean, that young gal has star written all over her. But probably the one I connected with the most because of what he said, because of his message, was John Derenboss. He's a football player. The guy is playing pro football, and he literally left the game, shot over to the studios, and was part of that finale last night. And I mean, I'm watching this guy and I'm listening to what he's saying, and the audience's reaction to his message. It wasn't the magic that he was doing, which is just amazing. I mean, this guy's having stuff appear out of nowhere. But it was the message that he was sending that was so, I think, inspiring. I love that kind of thing because it does renew your excitement, it renews your passion, and I know that's going to be a big part of your message. I'm excited to hear it. I'm excited to see you there. It's been an honor for me to get to know you a little bit in our pre-call and during this webinar, just to get an idea of who you are and what you do. And I hope that message has come through to our viewers too. And as we promised, this wasn't going to be an hour-long webinar. We wanted to basically give folks a flavor of who you are, what you're going to be talking about, and the benefit that they can extract from getting to meet you and getting to know you a little bit come March. So Ty, I want to thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. It's been really cool. And for those of you watching, thank you for joining us as well. I'm happy to keep Ty for another 2 or 3 minutes to answer questions that you may have of Ty. But in the meantime, as you are formulating your questions, I just want to go through a couple of things here and essentially remind everyone what's coming up. And I've actually attended and spoken at a number of events, not dissimilar to this, but as you heard from Ty, this is not going to be an ordinary seminar. This isn't going to be a seminar where you're going to go and sit in a chair and then go home at the end of 3 days and wonder why or what you just learned. The faculty presenting at this year's meeting are just exceptional. Ty is absolutely a major part of that. We've got folks like Garrett Gunderson coming, Lisa Clark-Price, Woody Woodward, Dr. Larry Cook, Blair Kolkalski, Danny Brobow, Gary Lee Price, and even Dr. Pete Dawson, which is really awesome. And so this isn't a sit in a room kind of event. There's a number of breakout sessions going on, some high-speed lunch and learns, which are just going to be phenomenal, a lot of fun. So not only will we be able to eat a great lunch, I mean, you're going to get some great experiences during lunch too. So I'm really encouraging anyone who gets a chance to watch this video and meet Ty to hurry up and go register. Go to aadpa.org, go up to meetings and education at the very top, click there, and you can register for this event. And on behalf of Ty, myself, and the leadership and the members of the AADPA, we all look forward to seeing you in St. Petersburg. And remember, it's not too early. So get the registration done, get it out of the way, get it on your calendar, prepare. That's what leaders do. They plan in advance. And that's what this is all about. So if we don't have any questions, I don't see any popping up in the chat box there. If we have any of the folks who are participating viewers, you can raise your hand if you'd like. There's a spot in the upper left-hand corner on your screen where you can do that. But I will also offer this. If by chance you have a question after this and you're watching this after, shoot it to me, Jerry at jerryjonesdirect.com. Again, it's Jerry at jerryjonesdirect.com. I'll forward it on to Ty, and we'll get you an answer. Does that sound good, Ty?
Sounds great. Yeah, happy to help. I look forward to meeting as many as we can fill in that room come March, and we're going to have a great event.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll go ahead and let you go, Ty, and for everyone else, thank you for watching this preview webinar. And Ty, thank you, sir, and I will see you in March, and I'm excited. Yes, it's going to be
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.